All right, welcome back to a new chapter. So, chapter 3. So, today we're going to be reviewing exponents. So, going to be a lot of information here, but this is all review. So, hopefully, you guys are going to look at this and go, oh, yeah, this is really easy. So, we're going to start off. I want to make sure we understand, like in this situation here, we've got what? The A is the base, and N is what we call the exponent. So, um, hopefully we already know that. So an exponent doesn't mean that's what we multiply by. That the exponent tells us how many times we multiply that number by itself. So hopefully you guys are going to like 5 to the third. There we go. We got 3 fives. And then 5 to the fourth, 4 fives. So we'd have 5 to the seventh. A total of 7 fives. All right. So another thing here, we got a to the 0 times a to the third. Notice in this one, we just added them up. And we could have done that up here. That's one of the laws of exponents. So we're going to be reviewing these ideas, making sure they make sense. All right, so the first thing we need to know is that anything to the 0 power is 1. So that's saying that there aren't any a's, so it is 1. So anything to the 0 power is 1. Now, if you have a negative exponent and it's in the numerator, you need to move it to the denominator to make it positive. And if you have a negative exponent in the denominator, you need to move it to the numerator to make it positive. All right, so here are all the properties that we need to know. So if we're multiplying two numbers or variables, whatever, with the same bases, a to the m times a to the n, all we have to do is add up the exponents. So we can see your two examples over here. This is the one we just talked about. We add up 3 and 4 and get 5 to the 7th. So let's take a look at this one. We got the same basis, so we add up 2 and negative 6, and we get negative 4. So 5 to negative 4. But since we have a negative exponent, we need to move it to the denominator to make it positive. All right, the second property here is division. So if we have like terms, we can subtract their exponents, top minus bottom. So if we look at this first example here, we got what, 3 to the 7th divided by 3 squared. So that would be, on the highlighter, 7 minus 2 would be 5, so 3 to the 5th. So now, if we had negative exponents, so like with this guy right here, we would have to do negative 8 minus negative 2. Well, two negatives make a positive, so it would be negative 8 plus 2, which would give us negative 6. And notice we can move that down to the denominator because we have a negative exponent. All right, so when you have two exponents in a row, so a power to a power, we multiply those. So notice here, 2 powers in a row means we multiply. We'd say 2 times 3, so 7 to the 6th. Same thing here, except we get negative 6, and then we'd have to make that positive. All right, so if we have an exponent on the outside of our parentheses, we need to make sure we distribute it to everything. All right, so notice the square here. We need to send that square to the 3 and the 5. So we have 3 squared times 5 squared. Same thing here. We need to distribute the negative 2 to both of those. All right, and if you have parentheses around a rational expression, you just need to send the exponent to everything in the top and the bottom. So everything in the numerator and denominator. All right, so if you're not done copying these rules down, you might want to pause this and get that copied. All right, so let's just jump into a few examples here and make sure we feel confident about these topics. So let's take a look at A. So we have division, right? So that means we got to go 3 minus 5. That gives us x to the negative 2. Now we don't want negative exponents, so what we're going to do here is we have to move it to the denominator to make it positive. So that would be our final answer. All right, so let's take a look at B here. We got to distribute to everything. So we got a 5 squared, well, that's 25, u cubed to the second. So that means we got to multiply. So 3 times 2 is 6. That's a 6. And then we got v to the 4th squared. So 4 times 2 is 8. So v to the 8th. So 25, u to the 6th, v b to the 8th. Whoops. B. Our answer. All right, so now with this guy here, we need to deal with that cube on the outside first, okay? So we're going to distribute all that through. So I'm just going to bring down my 3a squared b. So now we got negative 2 to the third. So negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. And then positive 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. So negative 8 is the same thing as negative 2 to the third power. So now we got a to the 3 times 3, ninth. So a to the 9th. And then we got b to the 4th cube and b to the 12th. So now we need to simplify everything. So I'm going to look at it. Let's take a look at the integers. We got a 3 and a negative 8. So 3 times negative 8 is negative 24. And then we've got our a's, right? So we got to add them up. So 2 plus 9, it's 11. Then we got b. We got 1b here and 12 of them down here at the end. So 1 plus 12 is 13. So our solution would be negative 24, a to the 11th times b to the 13th power. All right. So now D's kind of the most involved one here because we've got a lot of work to do before we can even start simplifying this. So we got to distribute that square to everything there. And we got to distribute this cube to everything here. So let's start off with that. So x cubed to the second would be x to the 6th. And then we got 4 to the second. Well, that 4 squared would be 16. And then y squared, right? To the first, y to the first times 2 would be y squared. I got to do the same thing at the next one. Distribute the cube. 4 times 3 is 12. 2 times 3 is 6. And 1 times 3 is 3. So now we just got to simplify our like terms. So notice we have x's on the top. That means we can add them. So 6 plus 12 is 18, right? I'll move this down a little bit. So we'd have x to the 18th. Am I right? 16th. I have no idea why. There we go. It's an 18. So now notice here we have a y on top and a y on bottom. So what we're going to have to do there is subtract, right? Because we got one on top and one on bottom. So 6 minus 2 is 4. Since we got a y to the positive 4, we knew that's going to go on top. So now we've gotten rid of all of those. So now we just have our 16z cubed on the bottom, and we have it simplified. Not too bad at all, right?
We're not going. Hey, we're climbing up. I'm waiting for the hill. Here we go. Look at that. Here we go. Oh my, look at. Oh my, look at that. Here we go. Wait. Okay, here we go. We're going up. I'm going up. We're going up. Up. Whoa! We're going down. Shut up. Oh, we're still on. Oh, hang on. Oh, don't be afraid, Frab. Don't be afraid. Hang on. Here we go again. Don't look down. Here we go. Ooh. Whoa. Hang on. Come on. Hang on, Frab. Woo. Here we go.
All right. So this one, they want us to convert it with only positive exponents. In algebra, it's kind of bad math to have negative exponents. You should always keep them positive. So a bunch of different ways you could approach doing this. What I'm going to do is if they're negative and on top, I'm going to move them to the bottom. And if they're negative on bottom, I'm going to move them to the top. So that's how I think the easiest way to kind of start off with this. So notice that means what? We got to bring the x to the negative 3 down to make it positive and the y to the negative 2 down to make it positive. So then we would keep the x to the 5th in the denominator. Now we got that y to the negative 7. Well, that's got to come up to the top to make it positive. And the z to the negative fourth has to come up to the top to make it positive. So now we can combine our terms here if we got any. Well, notice we have y's, y to the seventh and over y squared. That means we need to subtract, right? So 7 minus 2 is 5. Then we got a z to the fourth all by itself. That guy's gone now, right? So now we got x's. Well, what do we have to do with those? We got to add them. So we have x to the eighth. And that would be our final answer. So something that looked really nasty really isn't that bad of a problem. All right, so these are getting a little more involved. And we just got to take our time and make sure we don't make any little mistakes. So I'm going to start off with this guy here. We distribute the square through to everything. So negative 3 squared. So negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. And then we have x squared squared. 2 times 2 is 4. Now we got y to the negative 3 squared. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. So x to the positive 15th, right? Because negative 3 times negative 5 is positive 15. Y squared to the negative 5 is negative 10. So now let's go ahead and combine all these. We could move them too. Actually, let's try to do all this in like one step. So I'm going to work my way across. In my numerator, I got a 9. And then let's take a look at the x's. So we got x to the fourth and x to the 15th. So we would add those up and get x to the 19th. So now let's take a look at the y. So the y's, we got y to the negative 6 and y to the negative 10. So if we add those up, that gives us y to the negative 16. So instead of writing y to the negative 16 next to this, I'm going to go ahead and just make that jump and say, well, that needs to go on the bottom since it's negative. So that would be our solution. 9x to the 19th all over y to the 16th. All right. B, we got to distribute it all through. So now I'm going to have a to the negative 4, b to the negative 2, all over c to the negative 6, right? And now we can make this jump and say, well, everything on top is negative exponent, so we need to move all that down. Everything on bottom has negative exponents, so let's move that up to make it positive. So our solution here would be c to the 6th over a to the 4th b squared. And we're done. Is having fun yet? So with this guy, we got to distribute everything through. And then here we got to distribute everything through as well. So I'm going to have 5 to the negative 3 power. X to the negative 4th, y to the negative 3 would be x to the positive 12, right? Because when we multiply two negatives, we get a positive. Then we have y to the negative 9. So I'm going to do the same thing here. 2 to the negative 3. X would be 2 times negative 3 would be negative 6. And then y to the 3rd. So now, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all my negative exponents. So I'm just going to move things around. So 5 to the 3rd is definitely moving to the bottom. 2 to the negative 3 has to come up to the top. The x to the 12th can stay here. Then the x to the negative 6 that's on the bottom needs to get moved up. And then we need to make that y to the negative 9. Oops, that should be a negative at the bottom. And y cubed. So now, again, we just moved. Let's see if we can do this. Move this guy down, this guy up, and this guy down. Kind of sloppy, but it gives you the idea. So now let's combine everything. Totally up to you if you want to write these out. 2 cubed is 8, but you don't have to write that. You can leave it as 2 cubed if you wanted to. So we've got to add the x's there, right? So it's 12 plus 6 is 18. So down here, 5 to the 3rd, that's 125. And then 9 and 3 adds up to be 12, so you'd have y to the 12th. So we'd have 8 times x to the 18th all over 125 times y to the 12th. Super easy, right? All right, so here we're just plugging them in. So we're going to plug in these values and see what we get out. We got to take our time and make sure we don't make any little mistakes because, a sign issue could throw this answer completely off. So we're going to start by plugging in. We got what? X is -3. So -3 to the -3. And then y is a -2 all over -3 to the -2. Then y, we would have a -2 to the -2. So I'm going to move everything around. So looking at this, let's move that down. Let's move both of these guys up. All right. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have -3 squared times -2 squared times that last -2 all over -3 to the third. All right, let's hack this thing out. So we're going to start off with -3 squared. So -3 times -3 is +9. -2 squared, well, that's -2 times -2. That's +4. And then we still have that -2 at the end. Well, -3 cubed is -3 times -3 times -3. So that'd be +9. Then 9 times -3 would give us a -27. Almost there. So now we just got to multiply all this out. So we could say, well, 9 times 4 is 36. 36 times -2 is -72 all over -27. Well, since we have a negative on top and bottom, it becomes a positive. So it's 72 over 27. So I guess the question here is, can we reduce this? I think we can. We could have reduced it earlier if we wanted to. But it looks like to me, both of these numbers are divisible by 9. So we can divide the top by 9 and get 8. We divide the bottom by 9 and get 3. So our final answer would be 8/3. And we could have reduced the fraction early on if you went ahead and saw it right there. All right, so that is it for today. Hopefully, once you get into these, if you take your time and don't let yourself get confused, they should go all right. So if you have any questions, make sure you message your teacher so we can help you and post your questions or post the answers in our Canvas course. Have a great day.